I did 8 years of repetition. I've done 2.5 years of iterations, literally 2,000 view videos that I did for 8 years. 8 years, every week, never missed a week. I didn't look at the numbers. And those reps gave me the foundation to get to a place of belief. I went back to that question. Why not you? Why not me? Why not now? The last mile is barely crowded because most people are not going to do the work to get there.
You got to just press record.
Let's talk AI in relation to content creation. Go big picture. How disruptive do you think this is going to be?
I will tell you how ignorant I am as somebody that spends all of his time in this space. Like a few weeks ago, okay, my opinion for a long time, because I'm an artist, is that, look, I want to use AI in every aspect of the production, the editing, the ideation. But when it comes to on camera, there's something beautiful about the relationship you get to have with your audience, Dan to viewer. And we built AI avatars and generative voice and generative video and generative everything. Like essentially that's what we built in-house for ourselves to prototype, to ideate, to do pickups. Because if I missaid a word or I communicated something, it saves me from coming back in the studio to re-record it. Awesome sauce. Helps the team with storyboarding and kind of like creating, the pre-production stuff using AI in the B-roll. I mean, we built this whole tool called Turbo B-roll, which is a B-roll search tool on top of 60 terabytes of data on our NAS. Okay, so like heavy AI, but not customer facing or viewer facing. A few weeks ago, I'm on a call. I do these calls every week. They're called AI expert roundtables. Anybody creating AI content, I usually, if they've like got big audiences, I like what they're saying, I invite them to one of these calls. And I'm on the call with 5 other creators. And again, these are AI experts. They all do different things, automation, technical, media, but they all have content, 500,000, 1 million, et cetera. And one guy asked me, he goes, Dan, what are you doing when it comes to generative video or essentially, AI avatars? And I said, the truth is just like, I'm not behind it. The same reason I don't think AI should be singing songs. I think the songwriter should sing the songs. And to the degree that we can capture the voice and the purity of it, I think, let AI do the algorithm and distribution stuff. And he goes, interesting. Well, he said, have you ever heard of these people? And he starts naming all these people. I can't remember their names. And I said, no. He goes, well, those are all AI avatars. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah, they have millions of followers. They make millions of dollars and they're not real people. And on that call, out of the 5 people, the other 2 spoke up and said, yeah, if you go to my feed that you saw that you invited me to this meeting, that's not me. So I got duped by an AI avatar. And then the guy that's telling me this, he goes, yeah, for the last 3 months, all those videos, those weren't me. And then the 4th guy, I'm not even making this up. He sits back, lets us have this whole argument discussion. And he said, hey, I didn't want to say anything because I was really enjoying kind of your guys' different perspectives. But I also, if you look at all my videos, 600,000 subs, those were not me. It's my team that makes these videos. And I was like, oh, okay. But then I leaned in and I said, okay, well, how do you think of like the relationship you have with your viewers? And they had some really nuanced thoughts. They say, well, I think for news content, most people don't really care who says it as long as they have access to the information. So if it's an AI avatar, but it's on news, like it doesn't matter. Maybe different if you're teaching and you're telling stories and it's talking head. But their argument was, I think in the future, people are going to be okay with the AI as long as they know it's AI, as long as the information's really good. And I will tell you, again, this is only a couple weeks ago, that conversation changed my perspective on AI avatars, because when I was hearing the Gary V's out there talking about it, I was like, I don't agree. I think people buy from those they know, like, and trust. Trust is not something that you can do synthetic. It requires the soul, requires the belief. And I think I'm leaning towards that. So we have not decided to do any major strategic changes, but we definitely continue and have built the pipeline of production of AI Avatar Dan, and we'll probably experiment in the near future and see what the audience says and what the algorithm says. At the end of the day, I just care that I help people.
You've got 1.5 million subscribers and you're still experimenting. What's the biggest shift you've made in your content strategy, if any, that's maybe been recently working? You've touched on this at the beginning, but has anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, we recently brought on head of media management. His background is in production. And the big shift I think people are going to start to see, we just shot a few new videos that aren't out yet, is just a lot more focus on the artistic part of a video. You know, when I look at some of these, the Ryan Trahans and, you know, obviously Beast, but everybody knows Beast. Like, you can see why they get these incredible retention rates, you know, and some of it, I think they do it, you know, by design, and other ones it's just by second nature, just what they personally like as a preference. But this new media manager we brought in, he's bringing a level of artistic production that I'm really excited about, that's going to feel a little bit more playful and fun. And the truth is, Sean, it's just me, right? Like, you know, we spent a little bit of time together, but you can, you know, if anybody follows me on Instagram and they see all these reels, like, I live a very different life than most people, in the sense that, you know, I only do one-on-one meetings on a scooter. I take my team wake surfing almost, you know, once a week, every other day, if they're doing well. I like to use, you know, all my fun stuff, like my cars and my plane, to do cool adventures. And I have no problem having a camera around. Yet I think from a YouTube point of view, the B-roll might demonstrate it, but it's just, we're not shooting in those environments. And I have no problem doing it because I don't shut up. Like, I talk a lot, man. So like, if I'm on my boat, I'm always talking about business opportunities, vision, dreaming. What are we doing? You know, AI. So I'm hoping, you know, again, Sam owns my creative direction and kind of the metrics on the YouTube side. So he decides, but from what I'm seeing, I think that's going to be a really fun, you know, and just understanding stakes and designing challenges. Like Mr. Beast, like, I've listened to every interview Jimmy's ever done, period, full stop. Like, you name me, from Colin Samir to Joe Rogan to, you know, My First Million to you name it, I've watched it because I'm a student of the game, you know, and I care about understanding if somebody's executing the highest level and they're willing to share their best practices with. I've watched Dan Mace, his editor on the charity stuff. I watch his 3.5 hour video on how to edit videos, and I'm not an editor. Like, that's how much I care.
What's interesting about your YouTube channel is you didn't come out of nowhere. And if you go to your oldest video, 10 years old, basic talking head video, it looks like you're in kind of like a loft, residential, upstairs. There's maybe a banister there, and you're shooting a video, and you have over 2,000 uploads. So you could tell me, you know, I want to respect the journey. You've been on a wave for a while, but like not 10 years. You know, your rise has been wild in the last little bit. Speak to the journey and what's the real story behind how long it took you to get here.
What I want everybody to hear is a simple question. Why not you? Why not you? I mean, I'm lucky, Sean, that I had somebody come into my life when I was a teenager, when I was in rehab. I have a crazy upbringing, you know the story. And it's just, something happened one day. This guy named Mark Pence, I was about to leave. I was going to run down the driveway, told him to call the sheriffs. I just don't want to be at this place anymore. And he said, why not now? Why not you? You know, you're going to get out, you're going to relapse in a year, hopefully, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 5. You're going to come back. You're going to go through this. You don't kill yourself. And I remember thinking when he said that, why not you? And I'll tell you why this is relevant to my YouTube journey. Because it is kind of crazy to think to yourself, maybe if I show up and I do the thing, I could be one of those people. I mean, Sean, it's kind of bananas. I got to imagine there's millions of people every year that say, I want to be, you know, Mr. Beast, not even Mr. Beast, like maybe Dan Martell or Hermosi or Sanchez. I don't even know. Maybe their aspirations is like 1/10 of that. I don't know, but they don't truly believe it. And I got fortunate when I was a young kid that some man said, why not you and why not now? That when I decide, and it took me a while to decide to do something, I just assume if I'm willing to dedicate a decade, and that's what I made a commitment to myself, the first upload, I will do this for 10 years in a row, and I will publish every week, and I will never miss a week. And I haven't. The difference between Dan in that first video was me at my home to Dan that has a media team and produces videos that get 9 million, 20 million views a month is about 2.5 years ago, I decided to stop being an amateur, okay, what I call a marketing department, and decide to go pro and build a media company. And those are two different things. And I've been blessed over the years, in the last 2.5 years, to have this conversation with close to 1,000 of my friends that have come to me because they've also said, enough's enough. Enough creating content for marketing purposes. I want to stand and have impact with my message. I want to invest ahead of revenue to build something meaningful. And again, I'm the byproduct of other people that showed up in my life and expressed this to me. And that's all that shifted. And then, if you haven't read Stephen Pressfield's book, Going Pro, the big thing, I don't know if he talks about it, but my philosophy is very simple because I've obviously been an entrepreneur and done really well in my life, is calendar and bank account. How much time am I dedicating to the output, the craft, versus how much money am I spending? You can't tell me you want to be number one in a thing or be successful in a thing and then spend little time or little money towards achievement. Like those, your dreams, the effort has to be aligned with the size of your dreams. And I get this all the time. People, literally yesterday, one of my buddies, he just sold his company. He came to me. He's like, I want to work with you. I want to go pro. I said, are you willing to go all in? Because if you're not, I can't help you. The word calling, which is, I think, what we are called to do, has the word inside of it, all in. If you're lucky enough to find your calling in life, you have to go all in. And that's the thing. And Sean, I didn't want to be famous, known, thought leader. I didn't want any of that. What I had a desire to do, though, is to support other people and to inspire the next generation and hopefully, create a different message to these kids, because the alternative to what they were consuming, I didn't align with. And I can't complain about it if I don't give them a better option. So that's what shifted in 2.5 years ago when I went from literally 2,000 view videos, right, that I did for 8 years, every week, never missed a week, religious, disciplined, consistent. I just wasn't great. The difference, I didn't look at the numbers. I didn't even work on thumbnails. I didn't think of packaging. I didn't think of storyline, cadence, messaging, out. Like none of the stuff I do today was even in my realm of decision making as I created that content, which is fine. It gave me reps. And those reps gave me the foundation to get to a place of belief that when I finally said, okay, do I want to be one of those people? I went back to that question. Why not you? Why not me? Why not now? And I think everybody listening, if you're watching this, why not you? The last mile is barely crowded because most people are not going to do the work to get there.
Hey, we're about to get back into the podcast in just a second, but I have a question for you. Do you want to grow your personal brand this year? Do you need more leads and sales in your business? If the answer is yes, then right now is the best time to go all in on YouTube. Today's podcast is brought to you by thinkmasterclass.com, where you can get on-demand access to a 1-hour deep dive training revealing how to start and grow a profitable YouTube channel this year. For a limited time, you can get access to this on-demand class entirely for free, where you will learn the 3 biggest mistakes that people make when starting a YouTube channel, the new rules and changes that have been happening on YouTube and how you can use them to create an unfair advantage, and the exact strategy we use at Think Media to generate over 350,000 organic views every single day. The data is clear. 70% of viewers claim that YouTube makes them more aware of new brands. So don't wait any longer to start growing your brand and business with YouTube. Just go to thinkmasterclass.com to get access to this no fluff, highly tactical, free on-demand training. That's thinkmasterclass.com. I want to process an idea with you. So sometimes you got to suck it up and get better because you're not good enough yet and you need to do more reps. But Chris Do talks about, well, some people don't have the X factor. I'm curious your thoughts on a couple of things. I think one, I think self-awareness is a superpower. And I think there's kind of probably like, I was processing this with Patrick Bet David. There's maybe like being really aware. Are you kind of like A list, B list, or C list? And I don't mean like celebrity. Are you elite level? Are you pro Could you kill it in college, sports? And YouTube has a long tail that there is a lot of abundance and prosperity if you're at a C level in a particular category. It's also, there's Coke, there's Pepsi, but you might be a niche beverage like Poppy, you might get acquired later, or you're a niche beverage like Jones Soda. So can you maybe capture a market, find your tribe, find your community? The long tail on YouTube is big. Curious your thoughts on that versus also this idea of other models and approaches. One of the things we say here at Think Media is that everyone on our team is a full-time YouTuber, but only a handful of us are on camera. Because if you love YouTube and you love content creation, filming, now again, you might have to deal with the fact that are you the real on-camera talent, or do you want to be the channel manager? Do you love design? Do you love the strategy piece and find your way to plug into the system? Because we have people doing design, people who love YouTube and they love strategy. They pop on a video every once in a while. We've got people that, and so I also heard you talk about this recently as one of the AI opportunities for making a faceless channel. So even ways to get in the game, could part of the self-awareness be as well that okay, Layla Hermosi told me, I said, how many CEOs should really build personal brands? All of them? She's like, no, not on YouTube. Definitely not all. Because some of them just if they're really on video, do they even have the desire? They don't have the desire. But do they eat? They're just super awkward. But they could still do YouTube at their company if they maybe have other talent or somebody else that represents it, or their approach being from a media company angle. HubSpot went all in on media, but I don't think the CEO or the CMO does any of the content. They brought on other people. They acquired the hustle. So I'm throwing a lot at you, but when it comes to perhaps pivoting your approach, that there's a way to leverage this opportunity of YouTube. It just might look different than you think. What are your thoughts?
That is exactly what I'm trying to say. Is I think some people, let's say in the entrepreneurial space, want to be somebody that other people look up to for the business advice, for the entrepreneurial advice. And the truth is maybe you haven't lived enough to give any unique perspectives. Because that's the other thing, right? I've brought it up a few times, but I want to really let this land for a lot of creators that the best way to create unique content is to live a lot, to do a lot, to try a lot. The reason why Mr. Beast is because he started when he was very young. And if you just look at the amount of hours and reps, and it's not, a lot of people think it's 10,000 hours, but it's not 10,000 repetitions, it's 10,000 iterations. And that's a nuanced belief. I did 8 years of repetition. I've done 2.5 years of iterations. And that nuance is what makes great people great, is they didn't just do. So if you're trying to be one of these people and you find it hard or the audience is not resonating, then yes, please try a different format. Maybe a podcast interview style is what you want. And next thing you know, you're an Oprah. Maybe you want to do talk it like AI generative stuff. And that's just your angle. And you really like the script writing and the ideation discovery and the unique perspectives, or you want to do some kind of unique format where it's more vlog style. I totally agree that every person on earth is here to have impact. I know this for a fact that whether we're creating content or not, at the end of the day, I think every person's here to become their best version of themselves. What we call, the person you're creating God's image, or I like to call your 10.0 version of yourself. And in that journey, sharing what you learn with other people is how you feel fulfillment, not happiness. That's a fleeting moment, but fulfillment is do hard thing, teach somebody else. It's why everybody has a secret desire to write a book. Everybody has a secret desire to have their advice be asked of them, is because they want to feel like their life had meaning. Now, that might be for most people, their family, their kids. That's their outlet. Maybe it's your church. Maybe it's your CrossFit gym. Maybe it's your local charity or whatever it is. Maybe it's Facebook Lives. Maybe it's get ready with me in the morning, Facebook Lives, and that's what it's going to be. And maybe it's YouTube. I just know that everybody can do it. They just got to find their way to do it that aligns with their soul and their energy. And I think that when they find it, the market goes, "Ooh, we like this version of you."
So we've already gotten tactical, but I want to go a little bit deeper and walk through your 5 content creation rules. And let's dive into these. I'll feed them to you. Rule number 1, you say build your collection. What does that mean?
I think most people have stuff out there in the world. They just got to go collect it, right? So I'm a fan of, I call it belief collecting. So I have this manifesto, and that's what it says on there. So on my phone, I take things that I resonate with and I write it down. Okay. So I take the message. You might say something in this interview, Sean, and I'm like, oh, I like to. Actually, you did say something. You said everybody's a YouTuber, not everybody's on camera. Okay. So I'll ask myself, what does that mean? Well, that means that, there's different, and I'll try to write out what I felt with that statement. And I add that to my list. It's literally this long running list of ideas and concepts, et cetera. Because if I don't write it down, I don't remember it. I can't reuse it in new opportunity. I'm a big fan of that. I literally, like, even before this conversation, I was like, what are some of the messages I would hope that I could get across today that are on my heart and unique that I've been talking about, right? I don't just come on here and I say, oh, hope I say something good. No, let's do a little prep, but it comes from my collection. And the collection is literally the concept of, as you read, highlight stuff, rewrite it in your own words, as you talk to people, as you listen, as you study, as you watch, collect that stuff so that you have like a body of work to pull from. Every person is speaking every day to team members, to your kids, to your brothers, to your family members. And then those people hear things and go, oh, I like that. And then they adopt it. And then hopefully you've given them a shift in perspective. I always call myself a professional POV dealer, points of views. I've got points of views in the world. If you adopt them, your life will change. So I go around going, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? But I've captured them myself.
Rule number 2 is the content creation flywheel. What is this?
So this is the idea of what we were talking about with Neo, where you want to take your ideas and then you want to produce derivative concepts from these core concepts so that it feeds your short form, your long form, your written content, your LinkedIn. And that's the flywheel. So we've designed this kind of like publishing flywheel where the core YouTube video will be splintered and kind of repositioned as short form for all the different platforms. And that's what's unique about the world we live in. Sean, I'm sure you talk about this. For the first time, your follower count is a vanity metric. If you produce great content, you have the probability of going viral than anybody else, regardless of how many followers you have. And 2, the same format, shorts specifically, are the same format for all platforms, which is the first time in the history of social media content in the last 2-3 years. So that's the flywheel idea, is just start with a core concept, splinter it, publish it all over the place, use that as a feedback to feed your other ideas, and then just kind of keep building that flywheel.
Rule number 3, be 100% you. What are your thoughts here?
I think most people struggle because they're awkward, because they're worried about what people are going to think. This is my feedback. One day I was driving with my buddy and he kind of got quiet, and then he asked me, he goes, hey, this content thing, like, I want to do it, but what if nobody watches? I said, that's a fair question. I asked him, I said, do you have friends? Smiled a little bit. He said, well, of course I got friends. I said, how many friends you got? I don't know. I got some friends. I said, you got like 5 friends? He goes, yeah, I got 5 friends. I said, 10 friends? I got 10 friends. Cool. Here's what I know. There's 8 billion people in the world. If you've got 10 friends, that means people like you for who you are. And if you put you in front of the camera, then the right people out of those 8 billion will find you. And there's probably about 100 million that would fall in love with who you are. And trying to be anything other than you is creating a prison that you have to live in for the rest of your life. Because trust me, if you're lucky, and I think you should be, you will walk around this world with anxiety. If you're not who you are, you'll walk around with anxiety, and it'll always feel hard, and you'll always be worried that somebody's going to get you. Eventually, they're going to figure out who you are. You might as well just start that way. And I think it's interesting when I tell people, Sean, and I don't know if you know this, I do not approve any of my content before it goes live. Dan Martell sits in front of a camera, talks a lot. Eventually, the team goes through that, processes it, decides what they want to publish, and they decide and they hit publish. I consume the content as a consumer like everybody else. So I had to get okay, and I did that because I didn't want to be a bottleneck. And again, I wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time. So I designed it that way so that I knew I was never editing any of the stuff. I didn't go, oh, I don't like the way I look there. Oh, I didn't like the way I sounded here. Because I don't have that creative input. by design, because I knew that if I started shaping this narrative of who I was, I might wake up in 3, 4, 5 years and then be worried to go out in public, because what if somebody sees me eating a Cinnabon? Or, I mean, my secret addiction, it's not a secret, it's chocolate and peanut butter. I mean, I'll literally make myself sick eating chocolate and peanut butter. So I'm just who I am. And I just think that is actually the most creative and unique thing you can do. Isn't that wild that the most creative and unique thing you could ever do is be 100% you?
Okay, rule number 4, build your content stencils. You said clear, problem, story, teach. These are a structure that works across all formats. Break it down.
Yeah, I'm a big fan when I'm trying to do something at scale to create stencils. So think about painting a wall. If I wanted to put a bunch of birds on a wall, I could do it by hand. And some artists love to do that. Or I could create a stencil and have a spray can and just put all these bird silhouettes all over the wall. One would take me 1/10 of the time to do it. Now, when we create these kind of like content stencils, it allows us to add the art part within the framework, still being authentic to ourselves without stressing ourselves out and staring at a blank piece of paper. That's the power of a stencil. So when we sit down to do a YouTube script, we have a stencil. When we sit down to shoot reels, we have stencils. We have stencils for every content format. And then that way, if we learn something new or we want to try something different as a derivative, we edit the stencil, see if it got us a result. If so, then we lock it in as our main stencil going forward, if that makes sense.
Got it. And so one of the main ones pulled from one of your videos was you want to have a clear problem and a hook that stops the scroll. Expound on this after I break it down. And then a story, you maybe illustrate it with a personal experience or a client situation, and then teach something, maybe give a framework, a quote, metaphor, or solution. So
yeah,
kind of like
what's great, Sean, if people go back and listen to our conversation, I try to do it when I answer the question. I just did it with the stencils. Right? Sometimes a story is a metaphor. Metaphors are like stories, but they're quicker to tell, right? Or you want to say a quote, right? Like, why not you? Or, like avoid labor, look for leverage. Like you have to start thinking about how can I say something that's going to stop the scroll, because you're fighting against the thumb. That's what I think about all the time. It's like the thumb, literally mental, and then follow it up with a story, because story is the glue to the teach. Okay. So I was talking to a friend, or I ran into this issue. And again, the bigger the villain, the bigger the hero. So if you can really sell the confusion and the pain, and it's not a lie, it's just, you just got to be honest about how you were feeling. And then the teach, but here's what I learned. And then you just make that concise and direct, and it's a good payoff. That's, to me, is what makes a great piece of content for short form.
Build your stencils. And then as we land the plane on rule number 5, make it easy. And so what are your thoughts on this one for your content creation rules?
So I'm a big fan of productivity. And for me, anything that feels like we've produced a lot of great stuff in a short amount of time, that's easy. So for example, my reels, when I shoot reels, I don't sit down with a phone and just be like, all right, I got to come up with some ideas. What I like to do is I research while I scroll, and I save them in a folder. Now, what makes it easy for me is when I save it, my team has access to that. They pull those reels that I think are interesting. They write a question that would prompt me to give a similar point of view or perspective as that question. And I use the format stencil you just told me, right? That stencil format as the answer. So I can sit down and in a 60-minute window produce 10 really great, viral shorts that was easy. And it was fun for me because it's based on content I saw get, views, and it's pre-validated, and I have a unique perspective on it. My team does all the heavy lifting and the prompting. We sit down. I literally just show up into the studio. I sit down in the same seat. They set up the cameras. I shoot, and then I move on with my day. And that's just easy. And I think if you make your content easy, that you'll want to do it, you'll create more, because the energy, this is a big one. Everybody listen. The energy felt when you create is felt by the viewer. So if you, for example, create content at 4:00 at the end of the day, after you just went from problem to puzzle to challenge to setback, and you think you're going to sit in front of a camera and do an inspirational top 12 things I learned about being happy in life, you are crazy. So even like when you shoot your content, energetically, how you prep. Dude, before I shoot, I do bicep curls every time, 100%. Why? Exhaust the body, tame the mind. I want to exhaust the body, get my mind straight, hydrate, you know? And I just think these are all little tricks that you learn over time so that the audience gets the best version of you. Because the energy that I feel when I create the thing is felt by the audience. And even if I'm trying to be motivational and positive, but I'm super annoyed and pissed off, can't do it.
Final question. Is it too late to start YouTube today? And if you were starting from zero right now, what would you do differently?
Yeah, well, the first answer is it can't be, and I'll tell you why, is there's still people that aren't consuming YouTube that are coming on the Wi-Fi and the internet and Starlink. So the audience continues to grow. The algorithm continues to evolve. Just look what's happened in the last 3 years. We see these new innovations like the AI avatar. And my philosophy is, you know, you want to be ahead of it so you can disrupt yourself before you get disrupted. You know, the AI avatar is a huge opportunity that's day zero for anybody to kind of get on YouTube. So that's my answer to the first one. And what was the second part?
If you were starting YouTube from zero today, what would you do differently if you were starting right now from zero?
If I was starting from zero, what a fun question. It all depends what my goal would be. But I'll tell you, man, this AI avatar really messed with my brain because I think the part of me that is the innovator and likes a really unique challenge that hasn't been done before would go towards that path. One of the reasons I started YouTube is because it freaked me out and I didn't want to do it, which for me is always the right path, right? It's kind of interesting to consider, but every time you've been scared, it's on the front end of the thing you want. So fear is technically the path always, if that makes sense. So the part of me that is scared of the AI avatar and didn't like it is almost a part of me that would say, if I was starting today, that's probably the path I'd want to take because it's the most foreign. So that's what I would suggest.
That's interesting. That's because it's unique. It's new. Let's say, I know we're at time here, but you do want to be on camera.
Yeah.
But it's 2025. You're damn Martell, but nobody knows you. No followers on Instagram, no followers. You've done your business thing, but now you're ready to flip the switch and go personal brand like many people listening to this are considering doing. Just your first thoughts, your first couple moves. You're at zero. What are you doing?
First thing is I hire somebody to be my co-creator on the video editing side. I think that part should not, that's because it's already hard enough, right? So find somebody, align incentives, and then study the art, man. It's like, go watch all the Mr. Beast videos, understand what he was saying, and just allow yourself to create. I think that's why we're born.